Hi, my name is Sunny. I'm an amateur artist who is really into tanks. Here's a picture of me next to a chaffee holding a Kobe set of a chaffee. Pretty cool. Now, this makes Girls in Panzer the only anime I have watched in recent years, and man, do I cherish this gem. That said, my favorite character from the show is Anchovy, which means I really like drawing her. Look at this stuff I made a few months ago. But then a few months after I left my previous school and finished my art course, it felt like my art skills had regressed, and I felt less motivated to draw. At one point I stopped and contemplated, how did it get to this? I want to be able to draw my favorite characters without feeling bad about completely and utterly disrespecting them. So I looked through my old sketchbook from my previous year when I was still studying art, and saw MARC BRUNET'S 30-day challenge I did back then, which gave me the idea that I should probably do it again. That led me to find another MARC BRUNET 30-day challenge for characters. That's exactly what I needed. So, here's my attempt at MARC BRUNET'S 30-day challenge to get better at drawing Anchovy. This will be a two-part video, because the script for this video was taken way too long, so to get this video out as quickly as possible, I've made it into two parts. That said, let us begin. Day 1's task was to copy a character from reference without tracing, and draw a sphere cut in half. Like the hard-working student I was, I drew not just one, but two balls! Off to a great start already I was. Then, for drawing Anchovy, I applied the knowledge I knew on drawing poses and tried to capture the gesture, and after mending the proportions I ended up with a pretty decent drawing of Anchovy. Though looking back at the proportions, they were a bit off, and I also didn't draw the cape, because I forgot. But it was a nice start, and I like this drawing. Day 2's task was to draw 2 or 3 faces in different angles from reference, and to draw 2 overlapping spheres cut in half. Now, even though it was just 2 spheres, I am still not a pro at drawing circles yet, so I just kinda had to spam lines until it looked right. Moving on to the faces, these took me a while for sure, since the references I used came from the anime and the form of the face weren't so obvious, so I had to do a lot of adjusting. The second Anchovy I was really happy with, but I really struggled to capture the direction of the face. You can see in the reference she's clearly looking forwards, but in my drawing she's looking down. A huge W for Yuki, who is my #1 hater. Yuki, if you're watching this, your wins will not last, because I'm coming for you. Day 3's task was to trace over a partially clothed reference and draw spheres converging to one point. Yeah, at this point I still sucked at drawing spheres. Maybe I'm beating myself down a little bit much, but come on. Look at how many lines I had to draw before I got it decently right. Now, the tracing a clothed reference one I was pretty excited about, because I always struggled with proportions the most when drawing humans. This would be a good way to get the proportions right in my head. In reality though, stupidly enough, I decided to redraw it because I thought something just looked off. Then I just, ended up going back anyway, because it looked right again. And this is something I do so often, because I'm not confident with my drawing. If something doesn't look right, I'd just redraw it, compare with the first one, and realize they both look fine, so that was no point. Still working on that. Day 4. Draw a shaded sphere and redraw the face over a traced head. Today was a big day because I got the sphere down in one shot. Let's go! The face, however, was a different story to say the least. I kept trying with guidelines and constantly looked at the references, but the face never looked the same as it did in the reference. It was the eyes that I just couldn't get quite right. It ended up taking the third drawing for this face to look decently close to the reference. I then did it from memory, and I can't lie, this took like 30 seconds, and looked way better than the first two. I think the reason for this is when I was using the references, I focused way too much on how the reference looked, and not how my drawing was turning out. I did not use any landmarks on the traced head to find accurate positions until the third drawing, which I thought was a lesson learned, so I did it with another reference. Could have maybe moved the eyes a bit further apart, but other than that, not bad. Day 5's task was to draw a few cylinders as well as a bunch of heads at different angles. For the cylinders, I drew them. Yeah, I'm struggling to think of commentary for this part. There's only so much to talk about cylinders. For the heads, I opened my trusty Pinterest page and used the first head references I found and just copied them while listening to the glory that is Finland's internet. I always put on some YouTube commentary as background noise while drawing, and I know I'm not the only one. What do you guys listen to while drawing? Let me know. I read all your comments. Day 6 task was to draw complex 3D shapes and a naked body from reference with no hair. For once, I drew a man instead of a woman. Yeah, in year 11 just a year ago, I did a lot of studies on muscles for school, but then, since I mostly drew female characters, my ability to draw muscular men got rusty. It was a good refresher for sure, to remember how to create the proportion of a man. The 3D shapes were aight. Not much to talk about though. Moving on. Day 7. Draw 2 floating cubes and redraw the naked body from memory. Finally, cubes. Am I the only one who really likes cubes? They're so perfectly symmetrical and compact. And I guess I used to suck at maths and geometry, because that is neither 2 cubes, nor is that shape a cube! Bruh! Now for the body. I had the brilliant idea of not even looking at the reference before redrawing it, because that's just gonna go so well for me. To be fair, it wasn't terrible or anything, but it was quite different from the reference. Here besides it is one where I adjusted some parts to make it more accurate to the pose, but it wasn't very noticeable anyway. Day 8's task was to draw 2 eyeballs facing the same direction, and to redraw an erased half of a face. Today was exciting because I had actually killed Yuki, my biggest hater, meaning I could use his eye from his decapitated skull as reference. Alright, for the face, I decided to change things up a bit and use Sayori's face instead, another one of my favorite characters from the show, and I really like this face she makes in the tank camouflage scene. It was super fun to draw, the other one went alright. The angle of the face really messed with me though. Also, it was a flat and simple anime eye, which made it really hard to draw as a 3D form. Day 9. Draw a stack of 3 cuboids and cylinders sliced up, and face swap 2 references without any hair. Not much to talk about the stacks, except for the fact that it reminded me of Baker's Valley and Roblox. Really a masterpiece of a game it was. Now for the face swap. I did not hear the part where Mark said not to draw the hair. In fact, I would not know I had messed up until I redid this 30-day challenge after this one. So I swapped the face with hair anyway, which only made me realize how good Sayori's face looks with Anchovy's hair. Day 10. Draw a sphere, cylinder, and cube cut in half, and face merge 2 characters to create a new one. Cutting up the 3D shapes were no problem, but the face merge, yeah, it sucked, I'm not gonna lie. So I would actually go back and change it on day 11, giving her shorter tails and got rid of that messy hair behind her neck. And then I changed it again. Still don't know which one is better, you guys can let me know. Day 11's task was to draw 2 rows of spheres converging to one point, and then copy and make a small change to a pose from reference. Honestly, I have no clue what happened to the spheres. I just started not following the guidelines I drew for myself. I think that was cause I was struggling to draw spheres, so I was way too focused on making a nice circle. As for the character, I copied this drawing of Anchovy and I spent my sweet time on it. And this was probably my favorite drawing so far. It made me realize how fun it was as a child to draw my favorite things like TIE Fighters and Bumblebee, not from memory but by copying a picture and just being really happy with what I drew, even if it wasn't original. Another reminder for myself that art is meant to be fun. Day 12. Fuck, day 12. Draw a bunch of bent cylinders and 10 to 15 poses, 2 to 3 minutes each? What? I have to put in effort? Yeah, it wasn't actually that bad. I booted up Cinnamon Toast Ken's TCAP playlist and started drawing. First I drew the macaronis. It was harder than I thought it would be, but like, you know, I managed alright. The volume was the only part that was a bit tricky. Now, I could draw people, but what figure drawing was, I had no damn clue. So I just tried my best to replicate the poses with my knowledge. First few were pretty good, but I was using a lot of overlapping lines. It worked out, but I didn't think this was what figure drawing should look like. So I decided that after I had drawn the 10 poses, I would finally watch MARC BRUNET'S figure drawing tutorial. Very smart indeed. Day 13's task was to redraw one of the poses from day 12 and draw a few bent boxes. Honestly, this day really made me appreciate drawing 3D objects. These were probably the most satisfying things I have ever drawn. Something about them were just really nice. As for the pose, I redrew 2 instead of 1 pose because I wasn't really happy about how it turned out. Even though once again, looking back at it, it's perfectly fine, so why did I do that? I have no clue. Gosh darn perfectionism making me put in effort again. Day 14. The task was to redraw the character from day 1 with the same reference, as well as draw a sphere sliced into 3 pieces. For the sphere, I tried to draw it such that the radii of the pieces remain consistent so that they could theoretically be combined back to form a whole sphere. But that shit is hard, dog! I don't think I succeeded in that aspect, but I was happy to move on after the second attempt. As for the character, not gonna lie, I read the text in the video without listening to Mark. My bad. So I just drew another random character. Here's Mika stomping on some Pershing tanks. Then I played the video again and I was like, oh shoot, I gotta redraw the day 1. So I went off and oh my gosh. Difference was massive. The lines were cleaner than day 1. The proportions of her torsos and legs were much closer to the reference. She looks like she's actually looking at the camera. And I remembered to draw the cape that time. I was so happy with my progress. It actually felt like I was getting better at drawing characters. But we're not even halfway. We've still got 16 days to go. And with that, we end off part 1. I'm still writing the script for part 2. So give me 2 weeks, and I have the next part ready. Subscribe if you want to see it, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.